Hello there. This program is run under Ogewe Berea Hinya. Knowledge is beyond strength. In the last video, I spoke about making the invisible women visible during the International Women's Day. Now, it's almost a week since the International Women's Day has passed. The talk shows have ended, the newspaper coverages have ended, and people have gone back to normal life. The discussions are not there anymore, and people now are talking about they have gone back to their normal life. Some talking about the lack of political will to implement the 2/3 gender rule. But even if it was implemented, would the women in the informal economy benefit? So in this case, I'm advancing my representation of the women in the informal economy by using the metaphor of Agulhas Bay in South Africa, where the Indian Ocean meets the Atlantic Ocean, and they start bega kwa bega, like in the Safaricom song, bega kwa bega. We hold each other as we move on. And I'll begin by saying that the maps of my childhood were not drawn with ink. They were etched into the soles of my feet as I was pricked by coffee and tea breeches, and I have 3 scars on my left foot. As I scaled the ridges of Gatodo North, I learned that boundaries are rarely fixed lines. They are zones of negotiations, places where the red dust of the farm meets the encroaching asphalt of the town, where the silence of the valleys meets the roar of the factory. However, the women in the informal economy have lots of scars. They have scars on their palms, they have scars on their feet, and they have scars on their body, they have scars on their back as they move heavy luggage, as they are pricked by machines, as they make clothes in places like Uhuru Market. Their hands are hardened as they pick coffee, and their pointing fingers are hardened and are cracked. How these scars form the profound boundaries of their encounters, and they are the maps of their lives. However, the most profound boundary I've encountered was not in Kenya, but at the tip of the African continent at Cape Agulhas in South Africa. At Agulhas Bay, the Indian Ocean meets the Atlantic. It's a place of immense, almost violent power. For centuries, Western cartography has attempted to draw a line in the water, a border between these two giants. But at the shore, you see the truth. There is no line. There is only a meeting. And this meeting is what the informal economy women are claiming for. They want to be provided with a space in the cities where they can stand bega to kwambega with other activities. I'll compare the Agulhas Bay with the Tana River junction with the Indian Ocean to understand the Utu form of equality, which I call for to meet the needs of the women in formal economy. We must contrast 2 different types of 2 water junctions. The Tana River junction at the Indian Ocean is its silted water, brown waters are eventually swallowed and subdued. This represents the broken masculine system where women are added on. When women are marginalized groups try to join the formal structures, they are often forced to lose their identity to fit the oceanic scales of patriarchy. Their unique silt, their history, their culture, their methods, their institutions are washed away until they are indistinguishable from the salt water of the Indian Ocean. The Agulhas meeting point or meeting bay in South Africa at Cape Agulhas, the Atlantic and Indian Ocean meet. Here, neither subdues the other. They stand bega kwa bega, shoulder to shoulder. One is warm, the other is cold. Their currents move in opposite direction, yet at the point of contact, they touch, they swirl without erasure. This is what I'm pleading for women in the informal economy, that they enter the system without erasure. They remain with their institutions, with their methods, with their logic, and with their desires. The echoes of this echoes the spirit of the Safaricom songs Bega Kwa Bega. It is the transition from mere participation where one is invited to someone else's table to partnership, where two distinct identities remain intact while working in harmony. Safaricom Bega Kwa Bega is not about one power absorbing the other. It's about collective, rhythmic movement where distinct identities remain intact while working in harmony. So, can we have the women in the informal economy working in harmony with other systems without them being urged to be submerged? In the academic high tables, equity is often treated as a mathematical problem, a balance sheet where the goal is to make the informal look like the formal until they are identical. But at Agulhas Bay, I found a geographical metaphor for a different kind of equity. The Indian Ocean and Atlantic are fundamentally different. One is warm, the other is cold. Their currents move in opposite directions. Their ecologies are distinct, yet the point of contact, they stand bega kwa bega. They touch shoulder by shoulder. They touch, swirl, and exchange energy, but neither submerges the other. The Atlantic does not demand that the Indian Ocean change the temperature to be modernized. The Indian Ocean does not require the Atlantic to adopt its currents to be legitimate. This is the heart of Hutu feminism. Equity is not the erasure of difference. It is the power of distinct systems standing side by side with equal dignity. The colonial trap of submergence. For decades, global institutions like the IMF and the World Bank have approached the informal economy with a submergence mindset. They view the sisterhood economy, the chama, the market stall, the juakari forges as primitive version of the formal economy. Their solution is always formalization, a bureaucratic cage designed to pull the informal ocean into a formal one until the former disappears. When we force the market woman to register her fluid, trust-based trade into a rigid, individualistic tax code, we are not helping her. We are submerging her. We are telling her that her kinetic intelligence and her institutions of hope are only valid if they wear the uniform of Western capitalism. At Agulhas Bay, if one ocean were to submerge the other, the entire system would collapse. The same is true for our economy. When the formal sector erases the informal, it destroys the very logic of care and radical kinship that keeps the community alive during times of crisis. Legitimization, the power of the meeting point. For decades, to start bega kwa bega is to move from formalization to legitimization. The formal provides the infrastructure, safety, rights, and macro stability. The informal provides the infrastructure of the spirit, resilience, trust-based micro-equity, and community resource management. To start bega kwa bega is to move from formalization to legitimation. Legitimation recognizes that juakari artisan, market women, traders, and coffee pickers, and the CEO of a multinational corporation are both essential, but they operate at a different atmospheric pressure in the Agulhas Bay model of equity. Our model is not to fix the market woman so she can fit into the broken, extractive formal system. Our mandate is to ensure that the formal system respects the sovereign territory of her tomato store. It is to create financial products that speak the language of Utu Ubuntu, valuing the currency of trust such as a land title. Standing shoulder to shoulder. The three scars on my left foot and those of the market women, coffee pickers, traders, artisans, and those sewing garments at Uhuru Market, Gikomba Cartel, that have spent lives closing these oceans. They have been the women picking the beans, and I'm the scholar lecturing and linking and helping them start at the Agulhas Bay. In my scholarship, I refuse to let my academic self submerge my village self. I start bega kwa bega with my ancestors and my colleagues. The same case applies to the women. They refuse to be submerged. They refuse to be erased. They start bega kwa bega. We call policymakers and researchers alike to stop trying to modernize the Indian Ocean. Instead, learn to stand at the meeting point. Learn that the strongest economy is not the one that is the most uniform, but the one where the formal and informal stand powerful, distinct, and interdependent. Shoulder to shoulder is the red dust of truth. The meeting of oceans at Agulhas Bay is not merely a geographical wonder, it's a spiritual and economic reality that finds its most rigorous expression in kitchenized nitrate audit, the final bridge where the ridge and the ocean is where the theory becomes practical. The invisibles learn their trades at the evening fire, and that is the Agulhas of the home. If the Agulhas Bay is the global metaphor for equity, then the kitchen hearth or the fireside is its local laboratory. Every evening, as the sun dips behind the ridges, the first university is the mother's nightly audit of Mwatida Mugekate, was the precise point where the various oceans of our day meet. When the mothers take audit of their children's activities, when the women in the evening gather at their fireside to take note of what they have been doing during the day, that is where their oceans meet. In that small, smoke-scented space, the ocean of our physical labor, the coffee picked, the firewood gathered, met the ocean of our social responsibilities. The neighbors' help, the proverbs, the songs they sing as they knit, as they make clothes, and all that. The women may not necessarily ask if they have been formalized or their days they had maximized the profit. They'll be concerned about whether their children are fed. They'll be concerned whether their parents have medication. They'll be concerned whether their children have school fees. This is the Utu auditing. This way, the women ensure that the actions start beggar or beggar with our African values of I am whom I am because you are, and because you are, therefore I am. Auditing the meeting point. The kitchenized nitrate audit is the mechanism that maintains the balance of the Agulhas Bay. It prevents submergence by demanding an account of how the day was spent. The audit ensures that the pursuit of production never submerges the logic of care. It validates the invisible, just as the Agulhas metaphor legitimizes the informal economy. The nightly audit legitimizes the labor of the kitchen and the garden as work of the highest intellectual moral order. It enforces equity. If one child had scale and another had a small basket, the audit did not compare the volume of the harvest. It compares the integrity of the effort. It allowed different capability to stand shoulder to shoulder without shame. A final doctoral defense. As I look at the scars on my feet today, I realize they are the physical records of these audits. They are the evidence that I was present at the meeting of oceans. When the formal academic world rejects the invisibles or fails or demolishes their vibadas, I returned to the kitchenized audit. I asked myself, Mwatida Mugekatia, did I stand shoulder to shoulder with the truth? Did I protect the institutions of hope from being submerged by bureaucratic coldness? If the answer is yes, then the equity is balanced. My scholarship, like the meeting of the Atlantic and the Indian Ocean, does not need the validation of the high table that cannot see the water for the lines. The nightly audit reminds me that the most important map is the one that leads back to the hearth, where we are seen, where we are counted, and we are humanized. The Tana River trap, when the Tana River meets the Indian Ocean, its silted waters are eventually swallowed and subdued. This represents the broken masculine system. When women or marginalized groups try to join formal structures, they are forced to lose their identity to fit the oceanic scale of patriarchy. The Algas meeting point at Cape Algas, the Atlantic and Ocean meet. Here neither subdue the other, they stand side by side. This is the Utu form of equality. Safaricom bega kwa bega. This echoes the spirit of the song. This echoes the spirit of unity. It is not about the power absorbing the other. It's about the collective rhythmic movement where distinct identities remain intact while working in harmony. It is the transition from participation to partnership. At Agulhas Bay, the women powerfully reject assimilation in favor of radical side-by-side equality. Like the Samaritan woman who went to the well at noon to avoid the gaze of the giants, they navigate their world at odd times, the moment when the city has not woken up, like at Marigiti Market. Just as the woman at the well received the truth that the giants missed, their positions at the margins that allowed them to produce the living water of knowledge, the theory that nourishes rather than just cattle. They are the borders that protect the land. Like in the Gikuyu we say, Muguda oraga na rutere. A farm is lost starting from its borders. They are the guardians of the margin. They are no longer the victim of the periphery. They are the protector. By standing at the border, the shallow spaces of the market and the village, they ensure that the land, culture, history, soul is not lost to neoliberalism, extraction, and erasure. They offer debt-free wisdom. They carry the wisdom of the invisibles who have fed cities and subsidized housing for the rich, operating in a debt-free economy based on trust rather than interest. Their scars are many, like mine. They are map regions of battles won. They have stopped breeding, but they continue to speak. They are the coordinates of a woman who no longer seeks validation from the high table or state apparatus because she has found the center of the universe at her own fireside. She does not need the two-thirds. The red dust remains. They do not shake the dust or the mud off their feet to enter the boardroom, but bring the red dust into the boardroom. Neither do I shake mine. They have reclaimed the economy, and I have reclaimed writing from the margin about the margins with the ink of unsettled truth, ready to go to Agulhas Bay and stand shoulder to shoulder with the rest. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed the listening. You will share, subscribe, and like my video. These videos are intended for learning. So if you know anybody who is interested in learning about alternative perspectives of development, of gender studies, of mental health, domestic violence, AI, you can refer them to these videos. You can also refer them to my works. This is Mary Jerry Kinyanjui, and I'm grateful. We don't need to be submerged like the Tana River waters. We need to stand shoulder by shoulder at Agulhas Bay like the Indian Ocean and Atlantic meeting point. Two powerful systems working harmony in harmony. And this is where I want to bring the invisibles. I don't want them to join the broken system of extraction, the broken system of erasure, the broken system of destroying each other. Thank you.